and a little bit about yourself. So we're really, really glad to welcome you, and we hope you have this opportunity to really collaborate, ask questions, and really engage with our youth and world leaders during this session. So just to give you a brief context of this program before we get into the dialogue, is this session is part of the Ages of Globalization course, which is a course by Professor Jeffrey Sachs. And this course is all focused on sustainable development and UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And as part of this course, UN at Your Doorstep is a forum for dialogue on topics every single month where we bring young people to activists, world leaders, UN officials to talk about the greatest and most pressing challenges of our time. And this month, we'll be discussing environmental sustainability and all of the complex challenges and contexts that come with thinking about how to take action for the environment. And today, we will be joined by Honorable Erik Solheim, the former Norwegian Minister of the Environment and former Executive Director of the UN Environmental Program. He is a well-known global leader on environmental sustainability, served as the Norwegian Minister of the Environment and International Development Minister from 2025 to 2012. He also put in place the Nature Diversity Act during his time as minister, which many consider to be Norway's most important piece of environmental legislation in the last 100 years. We also will be joined by Boyan Slot, who is an inventor and entrepreneur, who is also the founder and CEO of the Ocean Cleanup. He is a Dutch inventor and entrepreneur who is passionate about creating mega projects to address planetary problems. The Ocean Cleanup, of which he is the founder and CEO, is a nonprofit organization developing and scaling technologies to rid the world's oceans of plastic. And the organization aims to put itself out of business with the goal of removing 90% of floating ocean plastic by 2040. These speakers have done so much. Their bios are extremely extensive, and we are just very glad to have them here talking about environmental sustainability. So before we get into the interactive component of this session, I just want to give a brief explanation of how this session will run and go over some very quick housekeeping. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Can we go back to the slide previously? Thank you so much. So first, a quick mention and thank you to Compass Education for helping us create innovative educational resources for young people to take action for the SDGs. If you're part of our listserv, you received the pre-pedagogical resources for this session, thinking about systems thinking. How can we really engage in innovative brainstorming before we have these conversations? And then afterwards, you'll also receive the post-dialogue pedagogical resources on how to take action. So huge thank you to Compass Education for the collaboration in this area. Next slide, please. So some quick housekeeping, please mute your microphones so we can really hear from the youth and the world leaders. Please use the chat for questions or comments or to share your thoughts. Our team will be monitoring the chat and also providing a series of links for you to follow up on all of the great work of the speakers. We do have the ability to enable subtitles and also sign language interpretation. So you can do this on your own Zoom account by going and enabling languages and captions. You were sent this information in the housekeeping for the UN at Your Doorstep sessions. Please turn your camera on. We would love to see your faces from around the world. And we're also going to have an opportunity to participate in the interactive polls and really share our viewpoints with everyone on this call. And so have your phones out, have them ready to scan the QR codes and participate. If you have any questions or issues, please write in the chat, and our team here, Isabella, Michelle, and Tara, will do our best to assist you on the technical aspects. One last thank you to the Foundation for Environmental Education and the young reporters from the Environment Program for being wonderful moderators and partners for this event, and we're looking forward to hearing from those students in a bit. All right, next slide, please. So as we kick off this session, we would love to get everyone started with an interactive activity and have all of us come together to create a collaborative word cloud on the topic of environmental sustainability. So if everyone can please get out your phones and scan this QR code. This will take you to menti.com, and you'll be asked to put in this code, which is, you can see it on the screen here, 86643941. So we'll leave it up there just for a few seconds here so everyone can access the poll. And this will ask you to share 2 to 3 words that you associate with environmental sustainability. All right, hopefully everyone has had the opportunity to scan the QR code. So we'll go to the next slide. And we'll give it a minute to load while we receive all of your answers here. So far we have about 60 responses with how the people in this Zoom room and on the live stream associate with environmental sustainability. So we see green, climate change, air, justice, generational, innovative, advocacy for the environment, zero waste, renewable, reducing carbon footprint, curriculum, sustainable practices, policy. So we'll give it a little more time because it usually updates in a few seconds, but it's really great to see what everyone in the room is already associating with environmental sustainability and what they're already thinking about when it comes to environmental sustainability. All right, now we have 208 responses, and you can get an idea of just looking at that word cloud of kind of the sentiment of the Zoom room here. So we'll go to the next slide. So now we're going to have the opportunity to introduce our 2 speakers to you and hand kind of the microphone over to them. So first, I want to hand it over to the Honorable Eric Solheim to really, in 2 minutes, introduce the topic of environmental sustainability and maybe share a concrete example from current world affairs to illustrate the importance of the topic. So we'll give you 2 minutes, and then we'll hand it over to Boyan before handing it over to our youth moderators. Oh, so Eric, you're on mute.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Last week, I was with the people who really changed this world. I was in this Chinese city of Chengdu with all the companies in the Chinese solar industry. Look, 10 years ago, if you wanted to go solar, it was an enormous cost. Every nation who wanted to switch from coal to solar need to spend a lot of money on that transformation. Now it's completely reversed. You save money if you go into solar. If you switch from coal to solar, you do good for environment, for Mother Earth, everyone understand. You do better for health, everyone understand. But you also save money because it's less costly. And that's thanks to, yes, in innovation in the United States, in Germany, in India and other places, but it's largely thanks to the companies we met in Chengdu, the Chinese solar companies. They have brought down the price so enormously, completely changed the world. And just to understand the size of this, the biggest of these companies is called Tongwei. That company alone is now so big that it would have been the 6th biggest nation in the world producing renewable energy if it was not a company, but a nation. You would have, yes, China, United States, India, Brazil, then Germany, then Tongwei, then Japan. That would have been there. And there are 5, 6 of these companies. So these are the people now completely transforming the world. Business, they do it, yes, for profit, they do it to create jobs and prosperity, but by bringing down the price, they make an enormous contribution to Mother Earth. And sustainability is, of course, about making change in scale, which take care of Mother Earth, but also provide better life for people on this planet.
Thank you so much for that perspective and getting us into the details of this topic. And we're excited to hear what the students have to ask you as well. So I'll turn it over to Buoyant to introduce the topic from your perspective and maybe share an example of the topic and why you're personally committed to environmental sustainability.
Sure, yeah. So I think zooming out, I think this is a a crucial century for humanity and basically all other species. Um, look at the past 200 years, humanity has made tremendous progress, and we've been able to celebrate victory over many of the traditional ailments in civilization. If you think about um, the huge advancements in terms of poverty, in terms of human health, we've more than doubled our life expectancy. In terms of famines being, essentially a thing of the past, with a few exceptions, really for political reasons, not because of there being a shortage of food. And we've really been able to do this thanks to human ingenuity, thanks to our work to effectively organize ourselves in institutions to drive that innovation and progress. At the same time, we are still, I think, in sort of an infant stage of our civilization, where we've produced a lot of value, but at the same time, there's these negative side effects that that causes this situation to be not sustainable. And I think ultimately sustainability means that this, that all these goods can persist so on one hand, it needs to be a great future for humanity, and on the other hand, it needs to be a great future for the entire planet. I think sort of too often environmentalism frames this as a zero-sum game, as if you have to get one, you need to compromise on the other. But I think really for the future to be sustainable, it needs to be great for both humans and the environment. And I think we can do that by drawing the right lessons from all the successes we've had over the past 200 years.
Thank you so much. I think both of your answers really set the stage for our discussion. I love to see the passion coming through and kind of the reflections on why this is important to both of you. And so now I think it's really time to hand this over to our youth moderators. So just to quickly introduce them before I hand the stage over to them. So first we'll have Emma Mitchell from Scotland, and she became involved in the Young Reporters for the Environment through her environmental work in high school. She initiated a project to clean up the school pond, which had accumulated plastic waste over 6 years. So they removed numerous bags of litter, significantly improving the pond's health. And after that, we'll also hear from Zaidan Nakib, who's a fourth semester diploma in mass communication student at UITM in Malaysia. He won first place for his Young Reporters for the Environment photo campaign for video reportage, and became a key speaker for the Wiry Litterless campaign under UNESCO ASP.NET, and aspires to be a journalist in the future activating for environmental issues. So thank you once again to FEE and YRE for this collaboration, and we will hand the stage over to Emma to ask our first question.
Hello, it's lovely to meet you both, first of all. It's an honor to be moderating this discussion. I feel like the youth of this generation have so much to overcome to find the future in the environment that we currently have. So I want to pose the following question to both of you. What are the main drivers undermining the environmental sustainability today? So first, Boyan.
Okay, well, thanks for your question. Look, I think I think it's very important to recognize, I think, the amount of progress that has been made, because if we don't, I think it would be very, a very pessimistic situation, right? I mean, so I think the problems that we face are real. At the same time, we humans created those problems. I think we can also solve them. And as I just alluded to, there's plenty of other problems that we have solved already. Um, so I don't see a reason why we wouldn't be able to solve these problems. And I think if we're pessimistic about the future, if we think, we're all going to die in 10 years, I think that, some people would argue that, it creates urgency, right? And it motivates people to act. But I would argue the opposite, really, that, if the situation is hopeless, if there's nothing we can do, that leads to fatalism. And it also, if it turns out that in 10 years we're all still alive, I think that also undermines the credibility of the environmental movement. So I think it's very important to not focus too much on the problems, but really focus on solutions, and not on all the things that are bad, but really on what can we do? Because ultimately, at least what I've noticed is that when there is sort of hope for a solution, that is really something that gets people fired up. I think much more than just a depressing story of how bad everything is. So, and I'm not saying these problems are not real, right? These problems are real. But I think it's sort of pessimism kind of preserves the status quo, and I think it's optimism that drives us forward. I mean, we need people that want to roll up their sleeves and fix problems, and those people, more than anyone else, will be driven by optimism.
That was a fantastic response. I'm sure a lot of people here wholeheartedly agree with that.
I hope so.
Yeah. Eric?
I cannot agree more with Bojan. He's absolutely spot on. Look, in nearly all of human history, 70 to 80% of all humans were dirt poor. There's still poverty on the planet, but it's about 10% down from 70. Until the Second World War, nearly everywhere in the world, a person who was born could on average expect to be 30. Life expectancy was 30. In big nations like China and India, but basically everywhere. Now, life expectancy in the developing world, leave aside the most developed nations like, say, Japan or Germany, life expectancy in China is soon to become 80. But in the two other biggest developing nations, Indonesia, it's about 74. And in India, it will soon pass 70. So from 30 to 70 and more, it's an enormous, enormous progress. So how can we take that progress to the areas where we need to do more, like the environment? And how can we make sure that everyone get into prosperity? I think if we have a can-do attitude, if we look to the solutions and focus on what we can do rather than the problems, we are much more likely to succeed. And if you ask what are the biggest problem, that is global wars and conflicts. Because if we work together, meaning the United States and China, India, Europe, everyone, Africa, if we work together, I'm absolutely confident we can solve all problems. We can solve poverty, we can give education to everyone, we can solve the climate and environment crisis, and we can bring peace to Ukraine, to Sudan, to the Middle East. However, if we listen to those forces who want to attack others, to create global conflicts, even wars, we will fail, because then we are distracted from the really step-by-step building a great humanity. And I'm absolutely confident we can do it. We can also solve the biggest crisis of our time, like climate, but only if we work together.
Maybe if I can add to that. So when you think about the human progress examples that Eric cited, it's not just an example of something that we can learn from, but I think it's also a prerequisite in order to tackle environmental problems, right? I think it was Irinda Gandhi who once said the pollution is a problem of poverty, which really, if you are poor, you are going to prioritize the well-being of yourself and your family. And ultimately, only once you are rich enough, you have the ability to also worry about the broader environment. So, and also it will cost money to have superior clean technologies over, at least, fortunately the economics are changing in the right direction. But for quite a few places, there's still an economic premium, an extra cost to clean solutions compared to the older non-clean solutions. So therefore, I think we should actually, we should embrace the prosperity of humanity. It is often labeled as the source of the problems, but I think it's also the only way out. I think a world that is rich is in a much better position to solve these problems than a world that is poor.
And if allow me to add, the role of youth, young people, like those listening to this, is absolutely essential. Nearly every major movement in world history has either been led by youth, or at least young people have played a very critical role. Look to the civil rights movement, which transformed America. That's one example. The May 4th movement in China, which was the origin of Chinese nationalism, they were led by students, people, even teenagers were critical to these movements, and the leaders were in the 20s. The Wright brothers, who were the first people to understand that we could fly, well, they were in the early 30s. Albert Einstein was 26 when he did write the special theory of relativity. And when you see a photo of Einstein, you see the old man at Princeton University. But when he did write it, he was with his young wife in the city of Bern with a toddler running around in the room. So young people are critical because they tend to be more innovative, they're taking more risk, allowing new thoughts to come in. So please, everyone listening to this, be part of this change. Mahatma Gandhi once said, you need to be the change you want to see in this world. And that's so critical. We can all help the change, also old people, but young people are absolutely essential for the change we need.
Those were both some amazing responses. We have two questions, one for each of you from an audience previous. Let me find the questions. So first to Eric, we have a question from Armini from Botswana. What were some of the most contentious issues at COP29 and what are the results?
The most contentious issue in Baku at the climate talks was about the money the rich nations in the world need to pay to help development in the poor nations of the world. And there was a compromise found. I'm not very convinced that this will come from political processes. I think most of this money will come simply from private investment and the market, where solar companies, as the people I mentioned from China, when they invest abroad, they bring Chinese solar technology to the world. But there are so many other examples of the same. So the focus in Baku was on climate finance, but it didn't really look into how new technologies can change the world.
Great response. To Boyan from Mohammed from Oman. What was the most difficult challenge you had to face as you brought the ocean cleanup to life?
Yeah. It wasn't much easy, to be honest. So I think when you do something like this, especially I started the ocean cleanup when I was, I started thinking about it when I was 16, officially started when I was 18. It's like pushing a rock up a mountain, basically. There's nothing that's easy, nothing that goes by itself. But yeah, so you just have to, I think the first few years are quite a lonely experience. Like you're basically, there's nobody else that believes in the idea other than you, and you have to have a lot of perseverance to get it to somewhere where it works. I think that at a meta level, I think that was the hardest thing. And of course, I can talk about the details in terms of finding money, working at all the technical challenges. We had, tens of systems that failed with prototypes and all of that. But I think the big lesson out of all of that is that, when I started, I really didn't know what it would take, how complicated it would be, but it probably was good that I didn't. I was very naive. Um, and I just started and I tried something and tried something small, and that led to the first crowdfunding, and then to the next small step and the next small step. So it is, um, even though every step was small, if you add all those steps up over 10 years, it can actually lead to something quite significant. So I think, you know, um, I think it's important. I saw a great quote, like, never compare your day one to somebody's, or no, the quote was something like, um, never compare yourself in your first chapter with somebody else in their 10th chapter or something like that. So, when I see someone like Elon Musk or something, I'm like, well, how on earth do you do that, right? But then you forget that, you know, 20 years ago, he started out at a very small scale with 5 people, and so everything big starts small, and it starts with one person usually. So I think it's important to not let yourself be, um, discouraged. I think it's important to just start if you have a good idea, and learn as you go. I mean, when I started, I really didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what problems I would face, but it was just important to get started and to make a lot of mistakes and kind of learn from them quickly, and um, be willing to change your mind as you go. I think that's kind of been the way I approached it.
That's very inspiring. It's good to have optimism, even if you're not sure where you're gonna go.
Can I intervene and bring
Oh
another
yes,
example of a person doing
course.
exactly the same? I mean, Boyan is, of course, an enormously inspiring person who started this at a very young age. But in the midst of the financial crisis in last 2 years ago in Sri Lanka, where really the economy broke down, people were spending the time waiting in line for gasoline. There were enormous power cuts. People were desperate. In the midst of that, a young Sri Lankan, his name is Nish De Silva, he called me and said, I want to start a zero plastic campaign in Sri Lanka. I told him, you must be stupid, because people have other priorities now. I mean, people are desperate and they're not interested in this. But he proved me completely wrong. He mobilized students from all universities all over Sri Lanka to go to the beaches, to clean the beaches, bring in the plastic, and of course starting also a program to reduce the use of plastic. Maybe we can use bamboo straws or avoid straws, and to engage with business in better business practices. Again, as Boyan started with one, he also started with one, but all of a sudden there were hundreds, because what he did was meaningful to so many. And I was completely mistaken that people would be engaged with that in the midst of the financial crisis in Sri Lanka. So it shows that when you have this determination, you come a long way.
That's amazing. It's so good to hear so many positive changes. All it takes is one person. It's amazing. I believe we have an interactive activity up next. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aha, there we go. Thank you so much for your responses. So we'll be moving on to an interactive activity now. We really want to hear everyone's voices. There's a QR code on the screen. It will lead you to a poll about environmental sustainability and the SDGs. And I will show you the results of them once we have a few in. The link should be in chat if anyone is struggling to click it. Okay, we have the first question. What do you think is the biggest environmental challenge we face today? So it's climate change, pollution, loss of biodiversity, deforestation, and resource depletion. It seems we have the majority in climate change, which makes sense. Makes sense as it seems to be the most covered issue at the moment. So majority in climate change. Next question is, which sustainable development goal, SDG, do you feel most connected to? So we have climate action, life below water, life on land, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy. Again, it's climate action, and that seems to be the biggest issue at the moment, and it seems to be the thing people want to change the most, especially youth. A lot of youth feel connected to climate change because we're the ones growing up into it, having to make the difference. Let's see. So thank you, first of all, for all these responses. It's good to have everyone's inputs and opinions on these important issues. So how empowered do you feel to make a difference in your community on environmental issues? We have a majority in somewhat empowered, followed by very empowered, which is very positive, and I'm very happy to see that. 8% in not empowered, which is unfortunate, but that can always change. There are always ways to boost the change that you can actually make. There's always support somewhere. So last question, in your opinion, what's the most important skill for young people to make an impact on sustainability? We've got leadership, critical thinking, teamwork, problem solving, and communication. Problem solving seems to be the most important skill that people think is the most important. So followed by teamwork and critical thinking, that seems to be what people believe makes an impact on sustainability, which I have to agree with that. So that's the end of that. I believe that is my time. So I'm going to pass the mic to my YRE colleague, Zayden, and our lovely speakers. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Emma, for that wonderful discussions. It was a really lively discussion, and it was really enjoyable to hear from both panelists, Eric Solheim and Boyan Slat. Thank you for that. And let's move on to the next session. So before we start, I just want to briefly touch on something. And as we know that Boyan Slat, you were the inventor for the interceptor, and the interceptor has been deployed all over the world, right? So it can be deployed in oceans and rivers, mainly to clean up the oceans and the rivers. And one of the interceptors has been deployed in my home country, which is in Malaysia, which was deployed in Klang rivers. Yeah, two, one in Sabah and also one in Klang rivers. And we are really grateful for that wonderful work, and thank you so much for the work, Boyan. And as for Eric Solheim, and you have been very advocative with greener urban development. As we can see, the Belt and Road Initiative, at the beginning, it wasn't really focused on making the environment greener. Instead, it was mainly just focusing on economics and growth and etc. So, but after seeing like Eric Solheim advocating so much, we are now seeing the initiative belt being built based on the green environment. And so like the policies that have been done by Eric Solheim was very wonderful to see. As for example, the Nature Diversity Act was mentioned by Amanda earlier. it was Norway's most important piece of environmental legislation in the last 100 years. So with this in mind, my question to both of you guys, what technological and regulatory innovations are underway that can shift the needle towards a more sustainable future? I will pass over to you first, Eric.
There are many, but let me mention a couple. The first is the renewable energy revolution. That's a complete game changer, because then solar and wind and hydropower with battery becomes the cheapest energy everywhere in the world. As I said, if you switch from coal to using the sun, you now save money. Battery is very essential to this, and we need better batteries, but they are coming, and there is an enormous effort now by the international battery industry to change into better batteries. The other, which is very much related, is the transformation of transport. I mean, we need mass transit systems, meaning metros and systems which can take a lot of people. There are 25 cities in India now building metros. China, basically all the big cities have many, many metro lines, but also many other Asian cities, Hanoi in Vietnam as an example. We have just opened a new high-speed rail from Jakarta to Bandung in Indonesia with Chinese support. So you see cities being much better. And added to that, these cities will become based on electric cars, electric buses, electric trucks, electric scooters, and that will make the city environment much, much better. It's much better for climate, much better for Mother Earth, much less noise. An electric scooter makes no noise, by a motorbike, of course, makes an enormous amount of noise. So these two main technologies, the renewable energy technology and electric mobility, will transform the world. But there are many others.
Yes, I completely agree with that. With the use of EV technologies nowadays have been very useful and making the world a much better place. And I completely agree with that, Eric. And over to you, Boyan.
Yeah, there are, as Eric said, there are many examples. I think fundamentally, when you look at let's take climate change, right? There is just a given, you got many people, and people want to live a certain lifestyle, and they have certain needs in terms of heat, in terms of transport, etc. And right now, often those needs are met in an unsustainable way. And I think what we need to get to is a world where people can do what they want to do, but in a way that doesn't have those negative side effects. So I think fundamentally, it is a technological problem. And I think where policy can play a role is really in, policy can either accelerate or decelerate that. But fundamentally, so say if all governments would today agree, okay, there's a law that we're going to stop emitting CO2 tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to do that because there is a technological time that it takes to develop certain technologies and to scale them up, to implement them. So it's a big, and I think that's really basically where most of my concerns lie is I'm very confident that we will get there, but how fast will we get there? And I think in some technologies, there's a lot of optimism. I mean, electric cars, I think, basically solved. Solar energy, beautiful trends in terms of speed of deployment, in terms of cost. I think there are some other industries that, we all depend on. I mean, the metal from your laptop right now, that's probably made of steel or aluminium. Making those metals in a way that is carbon neutral, it's currently still very, very expensive. So we need more innovation to drive down the cost to make that happen. Similarly, half of the nitrogen that in our bodies, in our foods, all that is coming from artificial fertilizer, which costs a lot of energy to to produce. So how to do that in a way that is sustainable, I think, is also a key question. Concrete, probably the building you're in has been made using concrete. Also a big emitter of emissions, and how there's probably still needs to be more innovation to again make it cheaper and make the clean technologies to make cement in a sustainable way, make that accessible for everyone. So I think so there is, I think, a lot of progress. At the same time, I think there's still a lot to do. So I think we need a lot of young, smart, ambitious people to use their brains in a way to help solve those problems. This is, I think this will be a 50, 60, 70-year long journey to get the world to where it needs to be. So it's definitely not too late to play a big role in making our civilization a sustainable one.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I sometimes when I also stuck in a situation where I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? Like, for example, I had some ideas, like how I can make things happen and make sure that it becomes so effectively. And sometimes people would assume that those kinds of idea are kind of like unusable, or people would assume, oh, these ideas might not even work at all. So even if the idea seems delusional or crazy, it still might work. It's just a matter of how you would try it. And I believe that those are some of the challenges that you also face, Boyan, during your time building the company as well, right? So
the best ideas start out as sounding crazy and impossible. So I mean, it shouldn't deter you from pursuing them, I think.
yeah, being ambitious is very good.
Look, when the Wright brothers made the first airplane in America in 1904, 99.999% of humanity thought it was impossible to get up in the air. I mean, you could go up in a balloon filled with air. You could not make an airplane. They did it, and now, of course, everyone in every nation in the world has any number of aircraft. So everything is possible if you allow the creativity of humanity. And if I ask what was the next, I think on the environment, maybe the biggest next is the recycling revolution. Look, I mean, 99% of all clothes on this planet are just thrown away. We use a shirt, sometimes even only a few times, then it's thrown into the dustbin. The cotton in the shirt can be used again. In Bangladesh, they're now starting recycling. Even more so. I mean, this is my phone. Well, this is my son. This phone, there is more gold in 1 kilo electronic waste than there is in 1 kilo from a gold ore in South Africa. And we are throwing away phones and computers and everything rather than starting recycling it. All this is possible. There is no technological difficulty with this. We just need to get the political and economic systems right so that we can recycle clothing and recycling electronic waste, and for of course also plastic, where Boyan is a pioneer.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Okay, so let's move on to the next question to Eric from Anonymous. How can young people contribute to impacting environmental policies? And please give concrete examples so we can know how to take action.
Young people can contribute in so many ways. I will start with that. The most important is that you make your voice heard. Every young person I know of is on social media. Please use the social media channels to highlight success stories, not criticize someone, but look, showcase what you do for the environment, what your friends and family do for the environment, or someone in your town do, or even from different other parts of the world. Showcase success stories. And then make these small steps. I mean, avoid plastic, zero-use plastic. You can drink without a straw. You can drink from a normal cup. You can try to bring a bottle of water to the soccer stadium or to your workplace rather than a plastic bottle. You can plant trees. That's a very strong symbol. The chief minister of the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh, my friend Mr. Chauhan, he planted 1 tree every day for 13 years. The chief minister of that state. Well, that's created a small little forest, but of course also showcased to other people the importance of planting trees. Demand solar panels. I mean, you are at the school, tell the leadership of the school, why don't you put solar panels on the roof? That will even be a good economic investment added to helping Mother Earth. So if we all make all these small steps, not what a small step of one individual is by itself not changing the world, everyone understand. But when many people do small steps, they become part of a movement, and movements are changing the world.
Agreed, 100%. Small steps will lead to bigger steps. So let's move on to the next session. This time will be an interactive sessions. We'll be with our lovely audience here all over the world. And we open up the slide for the Mentimeter so that the audience can scan. So you guys can pull out your phone and scan the QR code. It will lead you to the Mentimeter website. And that is where there will be a prompt saying, what actions can young people take to support environmental sustainability in their homes, schools, and communities? And I highly encourage everyone inside this room to participate and just try out and give your and just share your ideas and see what's good and not. Because sometimes in discussions, we don't know that sometimes different perspective will lead to better ideas. So who knows? Maybe your ideas can be used for a very big project. Who knows? So I really encourage for everyone to participate. And we can try to look at the Mentimeter's result. So what actions can young people take to support environmental sustainability in their homes, schools, and communities? So we got some response. Young people can play a significant role in promoting environmental sustainability through simple yet impactful actions at home, schools, and their communities. Start by planting trees, using reusable plastic and not littering. These are some of the basic things that we can also do. Minimize waste by reducing what you purchase, reusing items, and recycling materials like paper and plastic and glasses. Also very sustainable. The 3R, rally of no pollution. Students need to take responsibility to start a survey on plastic at their home first, and they have to educate their parents on the plastic pollution with alternative product to replace. This is actually a very good idea. Yeah, might be possible to use. In my option, the youth mindset plays a huge role. We not make a change without the right mindset. Also, almost the similar as the previous answers. Yeah, all of you guys are having the ideas, and I can see that ambitious energy coming through all of you. And I hope that all of you continue to bring that energy and go forward and try our best to make sure that we take care of our environment. And so we are having this. Okay, there's a lot of repetitive answers. And yeah, that is all for now. And thank you so much, everyone, for taking part of this interactive sessions. And thank you so much, Eric Solheim, and as well as Boyan Schlatt, for this wonderful discussion. And I'm truly grateful to be able to see you and talk to you guys and be the moderator for you guys. It's really an honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Hello,
Now I shall
everybody.
pass the floor to
Oh,
my friend Lee. Over to you, Lee.
Thank you, Zidane. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Lee Ray Davis. I'm from the Foundation for Environmental Education, where we run the YRE programme. And obviously, we've had our wonderful presenters today. So to Emma and to Zidane, on behalf of all of the international YRE students and offices, we are sending you big, huge congratulations. You've done us very proud, and you are truly, truly a youth voice. It's been great to see you represented. So my role is to kind of summarize what's been said in a few short minutes. And I think the key takeaway, and it started within, I noticed the first 20 seconds of the conversation, the word optimistic. And then we passed on to positive. And Boyan, you mentioned that we were in the infant stage of development. And Eric, you said we need to work together to solve these problems. What's been wonderful about this session is it's felt like a productive conversation. It's all been positive messages about what we can do, whether that's small steps, whether that's large economies of scale changes. There are things that we can do. But I think most importantly, and what we've seen with the Mentimeters, is it's this problem-solving initiative. It is not thinking negative. And leading to that, what I'd like to do, we've already seen Emma and Zidane, our YRE students, is I'm going to pass the floor over now to another group of YRE students who were our winning article writers. They are a group, yes, I can see. They are a group from Sri Lanka. And I just want kind of to say they have embodied everything that we've talked about today. So they were saying they saw a problem within their local environment to do with litter. They worked together. They got a group together. They did some activities. They became international competition winners. And now they're here presenting to all of you guys here and have taken over our social media. So without further ado, I am going to pass over to the wonderful team of young geckos from Sri Lanka, who are going to set you all a little bit of a social media challenge. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Lee. Hi, everyone. We would like to thank you all for tuning in for this important event on both Zoom and YouTube. I'm Sam Bridgewater, and I'm here with my fellow teammates from the Gecko Reporters from the Overseas School of Colombo in Sri Lanka. We are part of EcoSchools and Young Reporters for the Environment and have really enjoyed our collaboration with these two amazing organizations and are thrilled to have been given control over the ages of globalization social media, which has enabled us to share our school's initiatives with the world. We have control until Wednesday, where we will be sharing all of the highlights from today's event. We encourage you all to keep the live chats coming and to keep asking questions. And if you scan the code on the screen, you can continue to be updated with events like this one, as well as many other initiatives. And now, if you would like to pass, I would like to pass over to my colleague, Seneca.
All right, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the introduction, Miss Lee. That was really nice to hear. So I just wanted to begin with the initiatives that we have at OSE. So at OSE, we're working on projects to tackle climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss, aiming to create a stronger and more sustainable environment, not only in our school, but also outside of our school, like with the street sweeps. As a community, we are extremely active with reducing our ecological footprint. We recycle all the paper and cardboard. And actually, a fun fact, by recycling this paper and cardboard and selling it, we were able to actually install and build our own biogas plant. So basically what we do is with all the food waste that we have in school, with most of the food waste we have in school, we actually maintain these biogas plants and we make sure that all of our organic matter is reused through the biogas and the compost. By using the biogas, we actually learn that waste is just a resource. And because mainly through the fact that the biogas, the gas that it produces, we make popcorn with it. And the kids really, really enjoy the popcorn that they have with it. And a fantastic thing about our school is the fact that these ecological initiatives begin all the way from primary by having these kids work in the gardens and learning these sustainable practices like planting and composting. However, on a more personal level, I feel like we learn about these environmental practices in all spheres of our school program. Last year, when I was running for the track team, we were all affected by the plastic burning occurring outside of our school. So together, we were motivated to tackle this issue by reducing the hotspots that we found by going on these street sweeps. Additionally, we make sure that we interact with the local community to raise awareness about waste management and the effects of burning plastics. For instance, one of the experiences that we had with the locals outside of our school was the fact that the reason they didn't have bad intentions with throwing away trash. It was just the fact that the plastic bags cost so much that they weren't able to bag their trash and throw it sustainably. So what we did was, on our next street sweep, we provided them with plastic bags. Each week we go out and collect the waste from the neighborhood, like I mentioned, and we take all the PET, plastic, glass, and tin that we collect, and we take them to the nearby recycling stations. Starting from just a small initiative with the street sweeps, we've noticed how much progress we've made by reducing these hotspots around our neighborhood. It has been such an impactful experience that we want to expand and hopefully partner with other schools in Sri Lanka to continue these street sweeps. We just want to spread the message that there is no such thing as waste, but just things in the wrong place. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Seneca. Is there anybody else from Young Echoes who is going to be speaking? You've announced your social media takeover?
No, no one else. Well, thank you, Adan. Sorry for clarifying.
Not a problem. So we're inviting you. This isn't the end of the session. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. Like we said, take this as your first step. We are inviting you now to be part of that change, and we want you to join the challenge with our voice, our power for the SDGs. So we want you to get creative. Come on, share some of these great ideas that you've been putting in the chat. Get them on social media. Tag us. Our Young Echoes and our teams will be having a look out for all of the things that you're posting. And I think somebody put in the chat, it can't just be one big thing. It's got to be lots of little activities together. And this is what this is. This is this opportunity for you to share the work that you're doing together. And I think, just to kind of sum up and to thank both of our speakers today, Eric, Moyen, and also all of our young reporters who have taken charge of the session today. I want to just remind you all before we move on, remember what we've said here today. You are never too young. You can be the change. And I think Eric said you can be the change that you want to be. And Boyan also said, be crazy, be ambitious, think about the impossible, make it happen, but most importantly, start today. And today, attending this session is that first step that you've done. So thank you to everybody that's attended. And just to pass on now as well, if you've enjoyed this session and you'd like to attend more of them, we are very on behalf of AOG and FEE, we would like to invite you to the third UN at Your Doorstep session, which will be taking place on the 10th of December at 9 a.m. ET. This time it will be featuring Jeffrey Sachs. So he is the professor and director of the Centre for Sustainable Development at Columbia University, president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, an SDG advocate for the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. We also very excited to welcome Karimot Odiboa, who is a Nigerian poet. So we're looking at the creativity side. She's a lawyer, founder of Black Girls Dream Initiative, and UN Young Leader for the SDGs. And that particular session will be focusing on the topic of human rights on the occasion and to help us celebrate Human Rights Day. So we invite you to come along to that session. We will have young reporters again. I can confirm we will have young reporters from Canada taking over the social media on that day as well. So let's carry on this conversation. There's been some fantastic chats. I've seen some hands have been raised as well. And I'm inviting all of you to please stay on if you can for the optional 20-minute peer exchange. Let's carry on these discussions. Let's grow our networks, let's share our ideas, and let's hear from you. So thank you very much to everybody who's joined us today on the session, who's joined us live, for all of the team at AOG for helping us take this over. And on behalf of FEE and our young reporters and all of our network, thank you. Keep up the good work, everybody.